The next thing that kind of surprises people is that every community needs and requires a negative screening for tuberculosis, just to make sure there's no communicable disease. And another thing I find that is surprising is an out-of-hospital DNR. So a lot of people already have in place a DNR, do not resuscitate. And
welcome to Aging in Style with Theresa Williams, the podcast all about finding the silver lining no matter what life throws your way. I'm Theresa Williams, an award-winning senior living expert, author, educator, and caregiver to my husband, Mark. Join me as I share insights, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate the world of senior housing, discover ways to pay for care, advocate for your loved ones, and most importantly, learn how to thrive, not just survive, as you age. Hi, welcome to Aging in Style. Today, we are going to talk about what happens after you've made the decision to figure out assisted living or memory care for yourself or a loved one. What are the next steps? And that question comes up a lot, and we have never addressed that. So I want to do that today. So you have made the decision to move, you've gone and toured places, you've narrowed it down, you've decided this is the place I want mom or dad to move into, and what comes next? So to answer that question, I have Theresa Williams on the podcast with me. We've had her on before, I think maybe 2 other times, to talk about things. She is a wealth of knowledge in senior living, and she is the sales director at Rambling Oaks Assisted Living in Highland Village, Texas. So welcome, Theresa.
thank you for having me. This is a great subject, Lori.
Well, good. I can't believe I've never addressed this in all of our over 250 episodes, but I had someone ask me about it recently. And then, as you know, on a personal note, my mother just moved her husband into a memory care in Mississippi, and she had questions for me. And I knew a lot of it, but since I don't do the paperwork in the packet every day, the move-in packet, I felt like, this is a good topic and something we need to share with others so that they feel more prepared when that time comes. So Theresa is going to go over what they do when they have a new person moving into their community. Prior to moving in, they have to complete a lot of information, and she's going to go over their move-in packet.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I am going to give reasons why we need the information that we need. So a lot of this information is going to be through your physician, your doctor. So what this gives us as an assisted living, it gives us a snapshot of your last 30 days of what your health has been, your updated medications, a physical that tells us any underlying things that are going on, just so we are aware of where you're at in your physical condition. And then also legally, there are things that we require. And I'm just going to go down the list and I'll discuss some of these things as we go. So resident data sheet, this is going to be something that's required with information like your emergency contacts, your physician, your dentist, if you have a specialized doctor, the pharmacy of your choice, just general information. And then some of the things that do take, and I'm sorry about the paper rustling, but I'm actually looking at this as we go. Some of the things that might take a little more time is, we call them physician's orders. So all of these things have to be signed by your doctor. So a lot of times, some facilities will have their own paperwork they require to be signed, or some doctors will just print something out. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that a physician orders is what you call all of your medications, including over the counter. So if you're on vitamins or you're on aspirin or Tylenol, these things are required to be on that medication list. Even if you're managing your own meds in an assisted living, we still have to have them listed and know exactly what you're on. Part of that is because, let's just say you're on a blood thinner and you have aspirin in your room, and we're giving those medications to you. We've given you your blood thinner, and then maybe you have a little headache, so you take an aspirin, and you forgot you took the aspirin, and maybe you take another aspirin. So there could be some contradiction to the medications. So again, we just like to have those all listed, signed by your doctor.
When you get to the physician's orders, because I've heard this when we're trying to get someone moved in, sometimes that can be a holdup, right? Where you're waiting to get that order back to the community so that we can move forward and get them moved in. Do you have any tricks or tips on how to get that process quicker? Or it just kind of depends on the doctor?
It depends on the doctor. A lot of them are very familiar with this process. It just does take some time because the doctor actually has to stop and look at the things that are required because each community may have a little something different. A lot of times the person that, or the community that you're moving into, they can help you with this by requesting this information via fax or email. And it makes it a little different where you're not trying to get it back to us. We can do that through the community. And again,
do most communities do that, or do you ask the potential resident, their family, to get the information?
Either one.
Okay.
Yeah, it could go either way. Mm-hmm. I like to try to assist personally because sometimes I can help with the process going a little faster, but it really is up to the family to get the information to us. The next thing that kind of surprises people is a tuberculosis screening. Every community needs and requires a negative screening for tuberculosis just to make sure there's no communicable disease. And another thing I find that is surprising is an out-of-hospital DNR. So a lot of people already have in place a DNR, do not resuscitate. And a lot of people don't realize that in a community like a skilled nursing or an assisted living, that an out-of-hospital is required. And what that means is in the community, if someone walks in your room and you're no longer responsive, this tells us that you do not want to be resuscitated. If we walk in and there's something going on, of course, we're going to send you out to the hospital. But this particular DNR is required to be signed by your doctor. And
2 questions. Okay, First, on the DNR, if they don't have one, do they need to have an attorney get that for them? What's the easiest way for them to get a DNR?
An out-of-hospital DNR for a community needs to be signed by the doctor.
By the doctor, okay. And then back to the tuberculosis test. I know we just had to do that for my stepfather. So I believe, I wasn't there when they did it, but it was just on his hand. And they just, or wrist, I think, and they just insert something, kind of like a little test, like a droplet or something of TB. Is that what it is?
It is.
And then it has to be read, I believe it was 48 hours later. Is that correct?
Yes.
So 48 hours later, it has to be read by a nurse. I'm assuming because it was a nurse that came out to read his, and it has to be documented that he was negative.
Yes. So that does take a bit of time as well. People don't realize that, but it does take at least 2 days, 48 hours. You're correct.
Do you ever have any come back positive? Just out of curiosity?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Surprising.
Yeah.
We haven't.
And so interestingly, this may be different state to state, but in my recent experience with my stepfather was in Mississippi was that he had to have a chest x-ray and the TB test. And that could be specific to that community, or it could be something for the state. I'm not sure. So I would trust whatever community you're moving into, their packet they give you, and what they need. Because here in Texas, Theresa says we don't have to do the chest x-ray, right?
Either or. Within the last 5 years, if you've had a chest x-ray and it shows non-communicable disease, then that would be sufficient.
So no TB test in that case.
Right.
Okay, good to know.
Another thing that I would recommend having, and I always, when someone's on their journey of looking at assisted living, I just suggest to them to have copies of driver's license, Medicare cards, Social Security, any type of cards that you have front and back, because those are required as well. And then if you're bringing a pet, a lot of people don't think about this either, but if you're bringing a pet, vaccination records are required as well for your pet. Immunization record. A lot of times we can get that through the doctor. So if the family has it, it's awfully convenient to have that ready as well.
Are there any things that you require, like pneumonia shot or shingles vaccine, anything like that, or is that just up to the family?
It's up to the family. A lot of communities actually do that in their community. Some will have little clinics where you can have that option to have those things. It's not required in my community. I don't know if it varies in others.
And then COVID it's no longer required. It was for a while, but now it is no longer required, at least in Texas.
It is not required.
Anything else that we need on the packet, or is that?
That's the basic things that it takes a little time to get. That's really it in a nutshell. It seems me rattling it off, I'm like, that doesn't seem like much, but it really, a lot of families feel overwhelmed in this process. So that's one of the reasons that I try to help them navigate. And I always educate them on, even if they don't choose my community, I try to educate them on letting them know this will be required, because a lot of people, they don't think about that. They're like, oh, we picked the place. Can we move in next week? Well, this is a process. It's not a difficult one, but it does take time to get these things in place prior to move in.
And I would say my mother was very overwhelmed when we got to this process. And I think it comes to the point that, or the reason is that she felt relief that she picked the memory care for him, and she felt, okay, that's done. Now we just move forward. Well, no, we have to get all this paperwork done. And like on average, how long does, and I guess it depends on the physician, but how long on average, if someone decides, say, on a Tuesday, hey, yeah, I love Rambling Oaks, I want to move in here, how long on average to get all the paperwork done?
I would say a week.
Just to kind of get the time.
Yes. And it really depends on the family. The more prepared they are with the information required. A lot of them have copies of these things already. Seems the holdup is getting to the doctor's office and getting that information. Even when I faxed it, they'll say, we didn't receive it. So then the family will try maybe to bring a copy in, and then getting the doctor to actually look at it and fill it out. The best scenario could be take all the information to the doctors with you when you have a doctor's appointment. Have him fill it out now at that time, if possible. Have him sign all the required documents and be done, if that's possible. But sometimes you can't get that done.
And then I would say probably kind of stay on it, like with, reminding the office, sort of be that squeaky wheel maybe if you're really, needing to get them moved to the assisted living, or if it's a memory care. And this information would also be required. The licensed residential care homes would require the same, because they are like an assisted living, but a smaller, home type environment. Independent living does not require this because it's not medical care that is happening there, nor does a senior apartment. This is just comes into play when we're talking assisted living, memory care, or a licensed residential care home. Mm-hmm. Okay, kind of in closing, Theresa, can you give us the checklist, kind of the things that we need that you just talked about, but just kind of list them out if you don't mind?
Yes, absolutely. So resident data sheet, that's what we refer to it as, which you're with your emergency contacts and your physicians, your specialized, anything that's of importance that the facility would need that information. Physician orders, again, that's a list of all medications, including over-the-counter, any supplements that you're on, any type of Tums, all of that must be listed, signed by the doctor. History and physical. Now, this needs to be within 30 days of move-in. So if you found something on the 1st and you go to the doctor on the 2nd of the next month, it is considered expired information. TB result or a chest x-ray within the last 5 years. Out of hospital DNR. This does not mean the DNR that you already have in place for when you're in the hospital, whether you want them to resuscitate or not. This is for the actual community you're in.
And the doctor will sign that?
Yes.
Okay.
Release of medical records, that just gives us the right to communicate with whomever we need to communicate with, doctors, specialists. Maybe you're transferring from another community. It allows us to be able to communicate, and you give us permission to do so. Copies of your driver's license, ID, Medicare, whatever insurance cards you have, your Social Security card. And I do run into some things that are concerns with this. Some people are like, well, I don't want to give my Social Security card. It's a little tricky because we're supposed to have a copy of it. And the reason we require a lot of these things is because, let's just say you're going to the hospital, there's an emergency, and we're sending you to the hospital. We have a packet that's already made of all of your information, your med list, everything that is going on with you, ready to hand to the EMS. And all of those things will be there for them to refer to. So we want to keep it as up to date and on file at all times. Advance directives. We ask that whoever is the power of attorney, if you have one, we would like a copy of that to be on file, just to know who your medical and who your durable medical power attorney is. If you have a pet, we require a record of their vaccines. And if you have an immunization list of whatever you've had, we would like a copy of that as well. And also, again, on having clinics in a community, we want to know what you've already had and the time that you've already had it, because you might say, okay, I want that shot, but you really don't need it. So it just gives us a record,
like their pneumonia or shingles or COVID, whatever. Another thing I want to ask you, because I know in a lot of assisted livings and memory cares, they take care of the medication for you, and they use a pharmacy. Now, you don't have to, I guess, but they use pharmacies that everything comes like in the little pill pack forms or like blister pack. Do y'all do that too?
Yes.
Are they required to use the same pharmacy, or they can use whatever pharmacy they want?
If they're going to use us for their med management, for us in our community, we want them to use our particular pharmacy because of the packaging. Kathy, our nurse, she does all the reordering, all the refills, and it's just all set up for her to do that with a specific pharmacy. If you're managing your own meds, then that would be up to you and your family to do any of the refills and those types of things.
And then the packets, it's like, I've seen them, just kind of in passing, but is it like morning meds all like in one little packet?
It's called blister packing. Mm-hmm. Some do them differently. We do a blister pack format, and it just sets up the 30 days, each pill and each it's like a little bubble, and each pill is set up. So it'll be a 30-day card.
Okay. And is it marked, I guess, like this is what you take in the morning, this is the afternoon, this is the evening, or however it may be?
Yes. And we give them as per doctor's order. So that's how it's supposed to be given.
Okay. And having the meds like that just helps with you staying organized, your nurse staying organized with the medications, making sure everything's given as it should. It just makes it an easier process.
It definitely helps with any type of med errors.
Yeah, that's the big thing. We want no medication errors. So, well, I hope that this helps, because I know it can be very confusing, and it's just one of those things, as I said in the beginning, where you think, okay, we picked out the place, let's move in. And it's kind of like, ooh, slow your roll. We've got some paperwork to do. So I think it's good to know going in that it's not going to be, I pick a place and I move in today. There's some things we need to get taken care of. So thank you, Theresa. I appreciate you coming on and explaining all this to us and how your community does this.
Thank you for having me. It's a great subject.
Most of the people that you talk to when they decide to move in, they probably have no idea this is coming, all the paperwork, right?
They do not. Even just on a tour, when they haven't made the decision on which community they're choosing, I still like to inform them and give them at least a list of things and items that they need to be aware that will be required. And they're so grateful because when you're doing the tour, you're like, oh, I love it. This is, I'm ready to move, but I still want them to be prepared for that next step. So
absolutely. And I mean, as we always say, knowledge is power. And when we don't know that this is coming next, I think that's probably what causes them to feel overwhelmed, because they're like, are you kidding? I just picked out this place. Now I had relief for a second. Now I've got to do all this too. So it's a lot of stuff to do, but it's not that overwhelming just looking at it, in my perspective. However, if I'm the person who is overwhelmed and having to make this move, or if I'm older and it's my spouse, heck yeah, it is. It's very overwhelming. I totally get that. Well, as always, thank you for tuning in, and please share this episode and the podcast with all of your friends, families, neighbors. You never know who is in the midst of looking for senior living and has questions like these. And you know what? We have answers for you. So please continue to listen and pass it on and subscribe to the podcast so you always get our newest episodes, which drop every Friday. Thank you, and we will talk to you next week.